I'm Joseph Reardon. I live in Centerville. Oh, I can remember. I moved here when I graduated from law school in 1964 and immediately came to the Cape. And when I came down here, I can remember coming down, the Route 6 was double-barreled until you hit what is now Exit 6. At that point, the double barreling ended. There was a rotary there was a Howard Johnson's there, and when you turned right, went into 132 coming into Hyannis, it was beautiful. It was all woods, it was all green, it was lovely. Just, you thought you were in a very bucolic setting. There were no developments. Then over the years, of course, Route 132 has become a commercial sort of mecca, as it were. But I can remember first coming down here saying, wow, this is paradise. Coming into the road coming into Hyannis was beautiful. There was no mall on either side of 132 coming in. Everything was just lovely. The only thing I can remember is Abercrombie and Fitch used to be on the right side where the Cape Cod Mall now is. And George Spalt's Storyland used to be on the right side there too. But other than that, there was nothing. It was just beautiful. And on the left side was all woods again. And you came to the airport rotary. And that's one of the things I can remember. When I first came to the Cape, I thought to myself, this was an excellent choice. I had been down here many times before because one of my older brothers went to Massachusetts Maritime Academy, which at that time was located in the building right next door. The old, used to be a teacher's school, I think, and Mass Maritime was located in these buildings. I think both of these buildings were occupied by Mass Maritime Academy. So I can remember coming with my folks when I was a little kid down here and to visit my brother on weekends or occasionally, not too often because the cadets weren't allowed many visitors. But I can recall that. I can remember those days. Well, it's kind of an interesting situation. I'll start back a little bit beyond that. I was in the Navy for 3 years and applied for law school while I was in the Navy, and I was fortunate enough to be accepted at Boston College Law School. As with most law schools, recruiters came around for the third-year students, and I was offered a position with the Department of the Navy because I was a naval officer, retired at the time, and in the what they call the honors program the Navy had then, and I accepted it. My wife was pregnant again, but on June 2nd we lost that child. It was terrible. It was a stillborn child, and it affected my wife and I substantially. So I decided I can't move the family to Washington, and I started looking around, and in the law school I saw a notice that had been posted on the bulletin board that an attorney by the name of Jack Furman was looking for somebody to come in and go to work for him. So I came down to the Cape, I met with Jack, and the reason I chose the Cape is because I like the Cape. I had been here before, as I said, visiting with my brother, who was at the Maritime Academy, and I just sort of thought it would be a great place to raise a family in. So I came down, and Jack and I hit it off, and Jack hired me, and we went from there. And I moved down. Matter of fact, I moved into one of his duplex houses. He owned a number of them out on Miramar and Fresh Willows Road. Oh boy, I do when I was working there. It's funny you should mention that because Jack Furman had a collection business, a very, very large one, probably the largest one on Cape Cod. He did a lot of contract work, collection work, bankruptcies, and that was kind of his specialty. And I can remember there was a guy named Earl Bickford who used to work at the paint store on Barnstable Road, and I'm trying to remember what's there now, and I'll be darned if I can. But it was Earl was the manager there, and he had a disputed collection case down in the District Court of Howard, and I had it, well, actually the Second Barnstable District Court was sat on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at the library in Howard, and then on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays in the town hall at Provincetown. And I can remember having a trial for Jack, and Earl Bickford was nervous as a son of a gun. This is funny. He said to me, "I'm so nervous, I don't know what to do. I've never been in court before." And I looked at him and said, "Hey, guess what? Neither have I." So he said, "What? You got to be kidding me." I said, "No." Jack sent me down because the case, while it was important, and it is important to every client, in terms of significance was fairly insignificant. I think the amount in dispute might have been $110 or something, you know. Back then that was a lot of money, you know, but I'm talking now 1964. Kind of interesting. That was my first client. I can remember that the first time I had to try a case, it was a small claim case, very informal proceedings. But Jack was a good teacher. He taught me well. We won that case. Oh, I hated that. Of course, being the kid in the office, Jack always gave me the files when we had something on Saturday and sent me to Provincetown. And I can remember the very first time I went down there, I had passed the bar. I had received notification I had passed, but I hadn't been sworn in yet. So Jack called Judge Welch, Robert A. Welch, not Junior, but Robert A. Welch. Bob Welch is Junior's father, and was the judge down there, and asked for permission for me to appear in front of him pending being sworn into the bar, and Judge Welch very graciously said, "Sure." So with the judge's permission, I was sent. I went down there with a bunch of files, and I went into the office in the town hall, and John Agna was the clerk magistrate. Wonderful man. I like John Agna. He was a good guy. So he met me. Jack had called him, and John said, "Oh, Mr. Furman told me you were coming. Good, nice to see you." Showed me around, brought me in, introduced me to Judge Welch, who was right off of everybody was crammed in. Judge Welch was in a small little office, probably not more than 10 feet from where where John Agna's desk was, and he was talking to me. And in walked Sheldon Oswald Ball, Ozzie Ball from Provincetown, a true, genuine character, one of those people you talk about and you say the characters in your life. He was one. Oh my gosh, was he ever. He came in to me, walked up to me and said, "Who are you?" And I said, I'm Joe Reardon. I'm an attorney. I'm waiting to be sworn in. I'm working for Jack Furman, and he's down here. "Oh, I know Jack, good guy." He says, "We kibitz the bit." And he says, "Have you met the judge yet?" And he booms, and he had a very booming voice. And I said, "Yes, I just went in to meet him." He said, "Well, that's too bad." I said, "Excuse me?" And he said, "Well, that's too bad because, you're going to appear in front of him this morning." I said, "Yes, I am." He says, "Well, don't expect too much." And I'm starting to get a little leery, and John Agna is starting to smile because Oswald Paul then says, "You know what that judge's initials are?" And I said, "Well, it's Robert A. Welch." Of course, his name was on a plaque there, And he says, "Yeah, it's R-A-W, raw, and that's the kind of justice you're going to get from him." Oh my God! I thought I was so embarrassed. I wanted to crawl under the table and hide. I was mortified. John Agna laughed like heck and told me, "Don't worry about it. It's all right. The judge knows him," and puts up with him. And with that, Ozzie Ball laughed. He roared with laughter. He thought that was funny. He thought it was a good joke on me. Good joke on me. Here I am, the new kid on the block, and a guy insults what I thought was insulting the judge. And it really was insulting, but that was Ozzie Ball's nature. That's the way he acted. That's what he did. So that was my introduction to Judge Welch. The first time I had met him, I was so petrified. Let's put it that way. Not only mortified, I was just saying, "Oh my God, he's going to think I'm a real jerk." Well, I worked for Jack for, I worked for Jack for a little over 3 years, and then I went out on my own. Ken Wilson's father, Ken Wilson Jr.'s dad, was a wonderful lawyer, and he was unfortunately suffering from a terminal illness at the time, from which he succumbed. And Ken and I had struck up a friendship, and we used to go to lunch every now and then. His office was across the street. There used to be a lunchroom over there where the old Hyannis News had a lunch counter in it. And Liggett's, a little ways down, had a lunch counter too. And so I used to meet Ken Wilson there at lunchtime, just grabbing a sandwich or something, and we got to be very friendly. So when his father died, he suggested that I might want to come in and take some space in his place because he had a lot of room left. So we formed not a partnership, but we had an association. I had my office, he had his. And back in those days, you could do that. And the name of the firm was Wilson, Wilson, and Reardon. And of course, the first Wilson had died by then. I don't think you could do that now. It might be a little bit, maybe you could, I don't know. But you can't have an association anymore. You've either got to have a partnership and be responsible, or you can't just do what we did, call yourself by name, and but yet maintain distinct separate practices, which we did. Well, it's interesting. I had practiced law for a number of years at that time. As a matter of fact, I had been a member of the bar for 28 years when I became a judge. So prior to that, a couple of years prior to that, a vacancy had occurred in the District Court of Nantucket. And I applied for that job, went through the process, the Judicial Nominating Committee, the interviews, and all of that business. And I was not appointed to that. And I'm glad that I wasn't. A friend of mine was appointed, and she's done a great job since then. But then what happened was that Judge Roger Champagne retired. He hit the magic age of 70 when he had to leave. Wonderful judge, by the way, Roger Champagne was. He ran the jury session over in the Barnstable District Court. And John Curley was the presiding judge, had been the presiding judge there. Long story there, too. But anyhow, I was appointed by Governor Weld. I was chosen. There were a number of candidates, as is always the case, and that was my second go-around, and I was fortunate enough to be selected as the judge. All of them did, yes. I have 7 children. I have 5 daughters and 2 sons, and they all graduated from Barnstable High School. That's true. They were all except my oldest girl, Colleen, were born here at Cape Cod Hospital. I've got 3 live here now. 3 in the town of Barnstable. 2 in Marston's Mills and 1 in Centerville, and the others are kind of scattered all over. My son Jack, who is a lawyer, practices law in Connecticut. My son Michael is the waterfront director for the New York City Yacht Club in Newport, Rhode Island, so he lives in Rhode Island. Jack's in Connecticut. And my daughter Maura, who went to law school and is a lawyer who doesn't practice because she had twin boys, and that kind of put the kibosh on her ability to practice law because she had 2 more boys after that, so she's got 4 sons. She lives in Chelmsford with her husband and 4 And my daughter Sheila, who used to teach school, but she's got 2 boys now, so she's a stay-at-home mom too. They're living in Newburyport, and so we keep them. They're all right. So 4 of them are off of the Cape, and 3 are on Cape. So I'm happy with that. Oh, yes. Oh, my gosh. Holy smokes. Absolutely. Growing up, yeah. We had, it's kind of funny because when the kids were growing up, I was really fortunate to be a lawyer and to kind of have some time that I could cut out to participate with the kids. And I'm a firm believer in the adage, keep them in sports, you keep them out of the courts. And that's why all of my kids, I just push them, particularly the boys. Both of my sons at Barnstable High School, for 4 years, they played varsity hockey, varsity lacrosse, and varsity soccer. I think I probably knew every, particularly in hockey, I think I've been to every hockey rink in, I was going to say New England, that's not true, but in Massachusetts, surely, and a number of them in Rhode Island and Connecticut and New Hampshire and Vermont. I don't think we ever played hockey in Maine, though, but the kids were involved. Both Mike and Jack played for Barnstable High School, but they also played in the Metropolitan Boston Hockey League for the Cape Cod Seahawks. And I don't think that program exists anymore. That was a kind of an expensive program. I used to have to find ways to fund their participation in that sport. But they loved it, I loved it, but I put more miles in the car than you can imagine. The first wagon I had, I used to take kids all over the place. I had almost 200,000 miles on that when I got another one. And the second one I got when I finally traded that one, and it had over 200,000 miles on it. They were both Pontiacs, by the way. There's good cars. They were big Pontiacs, big wagons. I think one of the strongest thing that I see really is the quality of the town managers we've had. Wonderful, wonderful. I'm sorry to see Tom Lynch go. I thought he was great, but Mark Ellis will do just as good a job. He's great. So that's a very, very strong point. And you got to, when you're looking at the strength of a community, you look at its leadership. And I think the leadership is great from both of those two men. They were great. They were just super. Did a great job. And their predecessors too. I hated to see the Board of Selectmen form of government go, but this is working. The town council concept is working. Maybe not as much as some of the old timers would like, but I think it's effective and it's working. I knew nothing about it before it started. I really didn't. I was totally ignorant of the existence of the Parker Lombard Trust, and the late town attorney, Bob Smith, gave me a call, and he said to me, "Are you getting bored?" I said, "Oh yeah, I'm driving my wife crazy," which I was. To get away from me, my wife would have to go in the bathroom because can you imagine that, being married to a man for that long, and then all of a sudden, every day of my life, I got up and went to work and came home, you know? And then all of a sudden, I'm told, hey, I don't have to do that anymore. I was 70 years old. I had to retire. And I was going crazy. I didn't know what to do. She'd go shopping. I'd want to go with her, you know, because I was bored. So I knew I had to do something. So Bob said, "Ever heard of the Lombard Trust?" And I said, "No," and he told me about it. And we went to lunch. And he said, "How would you like to be trustee?" And I said, intriguing. I said I was particularly intrigued by the thought that the reason the trust existed was to assist the poor of the town. That really just reached out to me and grabbed me. I just said, "Sure, I'll do it." And so I can remember when John Clem was the town manager at the time, and it was an interesting thing that John shared with me, because after I was appointed and the announcement was made, John's wife said to him, "I thought you liked Joe Reardon." You know, and of course, Bob Smith told me that tongue in cheek, you know. But that was the beginning of a very interesting thing. In order to have that appointment come to pass, we had to go over to the probate court, and we had to go up to the Attorney General's office, the charitable division, the assistant AG in charge of charities. And we got approval from everybody for John to nominate me as the trustee, and the town council approved it. They ratified that. And I've been trustee ever since, and I enjoy the job immensely. It's not a particularly easy job because I'm dealing with personalities more so than with money. I'm dealing with complaints from the tenants, you know, and so I have to handle those. And one of the best things that happened, again, I'm the kind of guy that believes in trying to try consensus with the people you're working with. So we have a West Barnstable Civic Association Lombard Trust Advisory Committee. That's a real long handle, but it works beautifully because as trustee, I recognize the fact that whatever I do as trustee impacts the properties that make up the trust all along, you know, Route 149 there. There's a number of properties there. It probably starts from where I'm trying to remember the, I'm trying to remember the name that the Housing Authority put on the project that they built across from the fire station. But that's on Lombard Trust property. It runs from there all the way down that side of the road to Route 6A, crosses Route 6A, and goes down Navigation Road all the way to the marsh on the left side of Navigation Road. So it's a considerable piece of property. That includes the cemetery, by the way, in the corner, you know, and it's a considerable piece of property. When I took over, the rents were fairly marginal. Somebody asked a question once of, I asked a question of Bob. I said, well, if the trust owns the land, how in the world did all of those buildings get there? And Bob Smith, in his inimitable fashion, said, they sort of grew there. meaning that they were built, no permission, no nothing. They were just built. Because back in those days, I think the selectmen probably didn't pay a heck of a lot of attention to what was going on over there. At the time the trust was created by the way, it was before our country was founded, in 1756, and we weren't even a country then. This was George III was sitting on the throne of England, and the deed, and I got a kick out of the will of Parker Lombard because it talked about that, in the year of our Lord 1756 in the reign of King George III, which is the way legal documents are always referred to then in any British colony. And that's what happened. But anyhow, Parker left that property in trust, never to be sold, the income to be rented, with the income annually to be used for the benefits of the poor of the town, of the inhabitants of the town of Barnstable. So I think, as you particularly know, you in particular know this, one of the requirements I imposed on John Klimt to take the job is the following. I said to John, I will do this, but number one, I don't want to handle any money. That's a problem. This property belongs to the people of the town. The town should be responsible for the money coming in. And secondly, I need help because I don't want to spend trust money. The town should provide supportive staff. I need to have administrative staff. I need to have somebody that takes care of accounting for the money, reporting to me who's paid their rent, who hasn't, and I need administrative help too in giving the money away. I don't want to be responsible for this. I want a committee set up to kind of triage this about the applications coming in. John Klimt agreed. He thought that was reasonable, which I think it was, and he agreed. And as you know, you're the head of the triage committee that people file their applications and you and your committee review them. And in terms of the Lombard Trust, you're my right arm. I can tell you that. My left arm, too, and both of my legs. So that has worked out quite well. I'm very pleased with that. I'm very happy to report that the amount of money now going to the poor of the town is over $100,000 a year now. When we started out, it was probably in the $20,000 range. So it's improved, and it's been done. All of the rents have been increased gently. I haven't stepped on anybody's toes. Everything I've done over there, I've run it by the West Barnstable Civic Association Advisory Committee, and I think that's very important because it's important to involve the people who are being affected in the decision. So I want them to have a voice, and they do, and I listen very carefully to it. And I try to go to a West Barnstable Civic Association meeting at least once a year. The favorite place, my home, my backyard. No, in terms of in the town, that's kind of a tough question, I suppose. I love the beauty of going down. I love to. One of the most gorgeous views you can possibly imagine, if your vehicle can stand it, is to take a trip down Navigation Road. But I warn anybody that tries it, it's very bumpy, full of potholes, very tough, but the view from down there is spectacular. You can see the Great Marsh spread out in front of you. You can see Sandy Neck in the distance, and there are no houses, no nothing around. You feel like you're in the middle of the wilderness. That's why I kind of like it, because of the great solitude, peace, and quiet that's there, and sometimes I just like to go down there and just sit there and look. Sit there for 10 or 15 minutes. If anybody ever saw me, they would have thought I died or something probably, because I just sit there and don't move. I just watch. I watch all the wildlife, and it's just beautiful. That's one of my favorite places in the town, and it's kind of a secret place, but now everybody's going to know that. But that's all right. I'll tell you, it's a hell of a tough place to get to. That road is awful. Our young people, it always is. It always starts with our young people. I am very disconcerted at what I see happening in society, because we're dumbing down society, and I know it's appropriate to take care of people who can't take care of themselves as well as others. But in doing so, what we've done is we are destroying the initiative of younger people who are capable of really exceptionally excelling to do so. Because if we want to create a common denominator for everybody, I think that's wrong. because not everybody is equal. We like to think everyone's equal, but that's not true. People are just not equal. There are some people that are smarter than others, or most of the lawyers I know are smarter than me. Just that I know that, I recognize that, so I'm able to tap dance around it. It's all right. But that doesn't mean they're better than me. It just means they may have a higher IQ than I do. But to try and create a common denominator, I think, is destructive of the fabric of society itself. I see this, and I think for the first time, in my memory anyhow, the current generation is making less than their parents did. Think about that. Isn't that extraordinary when you think that is happening in our country today, where the kids, the young people out there, I'm talking the 20 to 30 to 40-year-olds now, are not making the same amount of money that their parents did, by and large, in many cases. And that really bothers me. And I think in terms of government, we're thinking we're not thinking nationalization, we're thinking globally, but the difficulty is that we can't compete globally with countries where wages are so low. We just can't do that, and it's really hurting our young people terribly. I don't know how we're going to change that, but it should be changed, because it breaks my heart to think that kids growing up today in college, getting out of college, looking for jobs, can't find jobs. Or when they do find a job, it's at a salary that doesn't allow them to live. I look at the college loan situation. Mother of God, it's awful. Young people are saddled with debt, and it's terrible. The government, if it wanted to do something, should stop allowing the banking industry to make the humongous profits they make. I mean, we're talking kids with college loans are paying now, I think it's 8.5%, I'm pretty sure. And that's stupid, because if you put money in the bank, you're lucky if you can get 1%. I mean, who's kidding who here? And the government's allowing that to happen. Don't get me going on the government. If I had my say, we'd have term limits, and everybody in Washington would go down there as a citizen legislator, spend 4, 6, 8, 10 years, that's it, then back home. And you'd see an amazing change in the laws that are passed, because what I view with government is they get down there and they think they've got a sinecure in office, they can do whatever they want to feather their own nests, and the hell with everyone else, and that bothers me. They're totally out of touch with the people, and the people are becoming angry, and I'm troubled by that too. How long do you think our young people are going to put up with this? I don't know. How long are they going to be, able to withstand the pressures that they're put under now to live? Just simple accommodations. Joseph Reardon, retired judge, general, whatever you want to call it. I'm involved in a lot of stuff, and I just love it. I live in the village of Centerville, and great village, one of the best in the town.